Hey everybody. My wife and I just got back from Nepal. For those of you that don't know or haven't been to the channel before, the channel is very Nepal centric right now. I have one video that is entirely about Nepal, specifically trekking in Nepal. My second video that I ever made was tangentially related to trekking in Nepal, although not necessarily exclusively for Nepal. The third video was a song that I wrote while I was in Nepal. And then the fourth video was sort of a preview video for these upcoming videos of our past trip to Nepal. Right now, I don't know if the whole channel will ever be anything but Nepal, but for right now, we're staying focused on Nepal. And before we left for this trip, I had an idea for a video in mind. And the reason I wanted to make it is because I couldn't find the answers to the questions I had about a certain trek that I wanted to do before we went. And so the point in going this time was to find those answers and then try to give them to other people. So where did we go? We went to the Makalu Barun National Park. The Makalu Barun National Park is the open secret trekking spot of Nepal, in my opinion. It is an entire area. It has its own national park, not unlike Annapurna or Sagarmatha or Lamtang, but not a lot of people go trekking in Makalu. So, for example, in 2019, the year before the pandemic, there were about 2,000 visitors to the Makalu Barun National Park. And to understand how few people that actually is, in the Annapurna National Park, that same year, there were about 200,000 visitors, which is a shame because Makalu is incredibly easy to get into. You don't need a TIMS permit, so the Trekker Information Management System, you save a little bit of money there. You simply need the Makalu Barun National Park entrance permit, which you don't even have to get in Kathmandu. We discovered that you can actually get it in the park. So if you go to Nepal and you want to go to Makalu Barun, but your schedule doesn't permit you to go to the tourism office and get the permit, you can just go to the national park and get it there, which is super convenient. It's really nice whenever the national parks allow that in Nepal. One of the other easy things about the Makalu Barun National Park is that it's not a restricted area. You don't need a guide. You don't need porters. You can do this whole thing solo trekking, and you don't need any special permits, just the $30 park entrance fee. The national park itself sits right next to Sagarmatha National Park, so it's not in some crazy unknown area, but actually getting into the park itself can be a little bit difficult. You either need to take a 2-day bus ride to the start of the trek, or you need to finagle your way into getting tickets, plane tickets to fly you to Tumlingtar, and then from there you can get a bus to the start of the trek. So it's not the easiest trek to get to, but once you get there, the entrance to the park is very easy to find, and the people along the way are all very helpful. So in doing research for this trek, I had a question. Is the park open all year round for trekking? Because in a lot of the national parks in Nepal, during the winter months, the higher elevation areas will not have tea houses open because it's too cold, it's too difficult or dangerous to get supplies up to the higher elevations. So those parks or those areas of the parks just close down for the season. And my question about Makalu was, because it's so isolated, because not a lot of people visit, if it's closed, when does it open? And how early can somebody go solo trekking there? So in doing research for the trek, I went to a bunch of forums on TripAdvisor and online and was really looking to see, is this place open in March? So I'm going to present the rest of the video in sort of a vlog type style with a voice overlay. But I did want to give people who might be looking for that same answer that I was looking for, the answer right up front, and that being, can you trek Makalu in March? Is it possible to do it in March? And the answer is that it depends, but most likely no. So as you'll see, or maybe not in the video, there's no pressure to keep watching. If that was the answer you were looking for, you can go if you'd like and continue planning your trek. But the park is open, but what depends is the snowfall that year. So during the middle of the Makalu trek, you need to go over these passes. And if these passes are not clear of snow, if the snow has not melted, then it's impossible to get over them. Or at least it's impossible to continue forward in the typical tea house fashion. Because most likely, or definitely, the tea houses will not be open, and the owners of the tea houses are not going to go up to those places until the snow is clear. That's exactly what happened on our trek. We kept running into people that would either tell us that you can't make it up to the top, there's too much snow, or we'd meet people who would say, well, the owner is coming back in a couple days, so I've heard, and, he'll let you know then if the trail is passable. So in our case, it was not. We made it about 4 days into our trek and had to turn around because the trail was just covered in snow. It was still a beautiful trek, and we'll make it back one day, but we were only able to be trekking there for about 6 days. So there's the answer to the question, and I'm going to put the contact information for the people who own many of the guest houses in the description, so that if you're planning on a trek to Makalu, you can contact these people and ask them whether or not the trail is open. Now, timing might be difficult. If you contact these people in January with a plan to go in April, they obviously can't tell you if the trail is clear or will be clear. My advice would probably be to plan a different trek, and then once you get to Nepal, if you can contact these Nepalis and ask if the trail is open in March or April, that's the best time. And then they can give you a guess or an estimate about when it will open. So anyway, we weren't able to make it, but I hope you enjoy the rest of the video because we did discover really a gem of a national park on this trip. And I would highly encourage any people who are interested in trekking in Nepal or want to trek somewhere a little bit wilder to give Makalu a try, because it is very, very beautiful. It's very wild. It's very rough, tea house wise. We're not talking about Namche Bazaar or a lot of like the Annapurna guest houses. It's very rustic, but it's very worth it. The people were super friendly and helpful, and I will bring the lessons that I learned from this trip to you as well. So continue watching or not. If you're just here for your answers, enjoy the video, and I'll see you in the next one. So we're here, and we have our stuff together. We're finally able to make it to Nepal. There was a point right before we took this trip that I thought I had coronavirus just in the couple weeks before we left, so I actually thought that we weren't going to be able to go. It was pretty stressful, honestly. But we got the PCR test back and it was negative, so I never actually had COVID, and the at-home test failed to detect properly. But we took a bus down to Logan and flew out from there. And we're flying with Qatar Airways this time. It's our usual go-to. They have pretty decent flights usually from the East Coast to Asia, or the East Coast to Central Asia. Whenever we have to go to Japan, we usually fly the other way around. But East Coast to Asia, it's usually Qatar or Emirates or Etihad. And I am digging the aesthetic in this plane. I love this deep purple, getting you ready for the red-eye flight. It's great. Qatar has a really, really nice economy section. Comfortable seats, and we got the whole row to ourselves, which is always nice. and we're off. So we finally landed in Kathmandu, and as you can see, the Tashigaun International Airport is a little less complex than Qatar. We are bussed in to immigration, and then from immigration to baggage, and yeah, the process was still pretty long with vaccination cards and everything, but we finally got to Kathmandu and met up with our friends who live there. And we spent the next couple days with these guys, just exploring around and checking out a few of the places that we hadn't been in Kathmandu. We had some good food and drinks, and yeah, it was just a great time catching up with them before we headed out to Makalu.
Thank you, Dai. धन्यवाद. राम्रोसँग जानुस्. बिस्तारै जानुस्. Gents. Thank you.
So this is the Tribhuvan domestic terminal, and it is really pretty easygoing terminal. It's very easy to get around. It's very easy to get through security and to check in. I think our flight was about 40 minutes late to an hour, which is typical, unfortunately. But we really didn't have to be anywhere necessarily on that day, so it wasn't too big of a deal. And I don't know if it's in this clip, but we're about to meet our first character on this journey, and somebody who helped us out really a lot. You might see him. I guess he hasn't gotten on the bus yet. So you see him in this clip. This guy's name is Prakash Gurung, and you can't miss him. He's the one in the really colorful suit jacket. That is an awesome suit jacket, and the only reason that we actually started talking is because I complimented him on it. I told him straight up, that is an awesome suit jacket. I've seen this type of suit jacket before. You can get them in Nepal. This is an Eastern Nepal style of dhaka. Dhaka is a textile that's found in Nepal, and it's most commonly seen when people wear the topis, the hats, which actually there's a guy just a couple people ahead of Prakash. You can see him now. He's got the topi on, and that's the same material as Prakash's jacket, but the style is just slightly different, and the style can be different all over Nepal. The different castes and geographical areas have different styles of dhaka. And here also begins, this is my first time ever filming with a GoPro, and I did not realize that it was going to catch the side of my stupid head the whole time. So, unfortunately, a lot of these hiking clips that I have, you're just going to see the side of my head. And I wish that wasn't the case. Unfortunately, that's where we're at. I'm going to do better in the future. I now understand how to film with a GoPro, and after I got back from this trip, I realized the error of my ways. And the other two hikes that we went on where I did use the GoPro as well, I remedied this mistake. So it's, unfortunately for the Makalu footage, it's not that way. But yeah, anyway, that's the airline. We're on Buddha Air, which is one of the only airlines that flies to Tumlingtar. So there's Buddha Air, Guna Air, and Yeti used to, but they don't currently. So here's a little bit of a closer look at some of the apparatus on the planes. We were sitting on the runway for about, I think, another 30 or 40 minutes. The flight was already late, but we sat there for quite a bit longer before we left. But we finally were able to take off. Now, interestingly enough, this journey, if you take a bus, it takes 2 days. But because Nepal is like an accordion, everything is so scrunched up, this is not a very long journey. This is only like 50... no, it's got to be longer than that. But the plane journey ends up taking only about 25 minutes. And this is going from basically the center of the country all the way to the east. As you can see, this is Kathmandu. It's pretty hazy. But once we reached the cruising altitude, you could see the Himalayas.
तथा सचिवबिन हामी टुम्लिङटार विमानस्थलमा अवतरण गरेका छौं। बाहिरको तापक्रम 30 डिग्री सेल्सियस छ। सिटको बेठीबारले सङ्केत बत्ती नलेपेसम्म र जहाज पुरा नरोकेसम्म कृपया सिटको बेठी नफकाल्नुहोला। सिटमाथिको सामान कक्ष खोल्दा कृपया ध्यान पुर्याउन हुन अनुरोध छ। क्याप्टेन।
So this is the point where Prakash comes back in to help us, and he was absolutely integral to getting us to where we needed to go. We landed in a town called Tumlingtar, and where we need to go is about 3 or 4 hours away by bus, in a town called Noom, where the trailhead starts. We also met a guy named Frederick. He's from French Canada, in Montreal, and he stuck with us the whole way. He was a really fun partner to have. He was the only other foreigner trekking in that area, and we had a great time with him. So you'll see him pop up in these videos as well.
मतलब केही काम पनि काम विशेषले नै आउनु भएको कि केही प्रोजेक्ट लिएर है वानली वान ट्रेकिङ
जुने मात्रै
भोक लागेको छ कि छैन
अहिले त छैन
नभए एउटा पसलमा खाजा खाने
तपाईलाई भोक लागेको छ
मैले बिहानै खाएको हो अलि
हामीले नि खाएको
बिहान चाहिँ खाएको अब खाऊँ भने खाऊँ एउटा म पुऱ्याउँछु होटेलमा अब नखाऊँ भने ट्याक्सी खोजेर जाम नखाम
नखाइ पनि
सकिन्छ
So this is Prakash.
Frederick. Frederick. Yeah.
You can call me Fred.
I'm Prakash. Yeah, I'm Frederick.
Yeah.
So he's gonna help us get a ride basically.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
You speak Nepalese?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
Saman ayo?
I boy.
Samanaya?
You receive your material?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go.
So this is where Prakash really helped us out. He was negotiating the jeeps and the vans all the way up to where we needed to start the trek. We were going from, this is again Tumlingtar, and from Tumlingtar we were going to get a half-hour tuk-tuk ride up to Kanbari, which is the capital of this district. And then from Kanbari, he then negotiated us a jeep that would take us all the way to the starting position called Noom. And Noom is where we would start the Makalu trek.
पाँचमा अलि मिल्दैन तेलको महँगो छ कि त्यो भएकाले एकजनाको 600 रुपैयाँ भाडा हो अनि रिजर्भ हुन्छ ब्याग राख्नुस् न
It's 5,000 okay? To split?
No.
Oh,
6.
sorry, 6,000.
मैले अघि 5 or 6 भने थिए है
Okay.
5 देखि 6 भन्छ हैन कोही बेला 6 पनि पुग्छ अब धेरै ट्याक्सीहरु हुँदा बार्गेनिङ गर्दा हामीले गर्दा अब डिले हुन्छ है 1000 हेरौँ
Hunsa.
ल
Bye.
राम्रोसँग
Hasta.
राम्रो होटलतिर सेटल पनि गराइदिनु ल माथि बस्यो भने ल भाइ
At this point, we dropped Prakash off at his request, but he made sure that we were taken care of. Our driver, Sagar, was also a really nice guy and took care of us by bringing us to, like Prakash said, a nice hotel. One side note, this road from Tumlingtar to Noom is rough. It takes about 3 hours, and I hope when we return here this road will be better off, because this is maybe the roughest road I've ever had to travel on in Nepal. Regardless, Sagar handled the road extremely well and dropped us off at the Sherpa guest house. We said goodbye to him after he dropped us off, and this is his farewell.
Hey?
Yes.
Nice to meet you. भेटेर खुसी लाग्यो
हस् हुन्छ ल राम्रो शुभ यात्रा हजुरहरुलाई
धन्यवाद Our room. That's 500 a night. Actually, it's 1,000 a night because it's 2 people. It's the first real day of trekking. since we didn't do anything yesterday. Other than get bounced around in a jeep for 4 hours. Good morning. We're currently in Noom, a town called Noom. We flew into Tumlingtar yesterday, and then we took a 4-hour ride. Well, actually, we took a half-hour ride to Kanbari, and then from Kanbari another 3 hours to Noom, where we are now. From here, it's the starting point of the Makalu Base Camp trek. Across the valley here, you can see where we're going today, which is a town called Seduwa. We stayed at Sherpa Guest House, Sherpa Hotel, Sherpa Guest House, something like that. The owners are very nice. It was 1,000 rupees for us, so it's 500 per person for a bed, which is a little more expensive than I thought it was going to be, because I don't think beds are usually that much. But after getting here, one thing that strikes me is just how remote this is. I don't think I've definitely never been on a trek in Nepal where it just felt so remote and hard to get to. Being that the closest airport is Tumlingtar, which is 4 hours away. But the people here are very kind, very nice, very helpful. Like you saw before, we have Sagar, our driver, who helped us here. There's also Prakash, who was absolutely necessary to help us get all the way here yesterday. Thankfully, we didn't have to stay in Kanbari or Chichila, but here we are. We're in Noom, and we're going to set out this morning to Seduwa. So I'll check back in when we get to Seduwa and where we stay. Before we left Noom, we met one other character, the owner of Sherpa Guest House. Tapaiको नाम दाइ?
मेरो पूर्वावाङ्दी हो, पूर्वावाङ्दी शेर्पा.
His name was Purwawandi Sherpa. You'll notice that we meet many Sherpas from here forward, and there are 2 reasons for this. One is that this area was home to many Sherpa even before Makalu became a national park. The other reason is that the majority of the tea houses seem to be owned by one extended Sherpa family. The reason this is noteworthy is that once we had made contact with the owner's family, they were able to call their relatives to see what the status of the higher altitude guest houses were. This is the case in a lot of trekking areas, but was especially crucial here since we didn't know how far we were going to get.
Hello. Namaste. Namaste. के छ? ठिकै छ है? धन्यवाद.
नेपाली नै हो क्या?
होइन.
नेपाली देखिन्छ है?
हजुर. तपाईँ स्कुलमा पढाउनुहुन्छ कि?
हजुर.
ए.
अच्छा.
कहाँ स्कुल छ?
मस्तिर डाँडा.
कति घन्टा हिँड्नुपर्छ?
हामीलाई 1 घन्टा.
1 घन्टा.
नेपाली प्रष्ट आउनु.
धन्यवाद.
गाह्रो छ ल्याङ्ग्वेज है?
हुन सक्छ.
हिँड्न गाह्रो छ.
Thank you.
I don't know if I can make clear that this was maybe the hardest day of the entire trek. This is an 1.5-hour decline into a valley and then around a 3-hour incline to Seduwa after reaching the bottom. After you reach the suspension bridge at the bottom, your legs are super wobbly from the decline, and then you have to do the hard part going up. It's really discouraging and not a lot of fun. Not to mention that going down, you have the sun hidden behind the hill, but then going up on the other side, the sun is just beating down on you. Trails that are stairs are maybe my least favorite to do, and this first day was only stairs. That being said, we met, once again, very nice people on the path. One thing I noticed about this area that is different from the other areas that I've trekked is that many people were super excited to hear me speak Nepali. I don't know if it's because they just don't get as many foreign hikers around here or what, but people were genuinely excited to hear me speaking Nepali. Everyone thought Mino was Nepali anyway, so they were less excited to hear hers, but she still got special treatment since they all thought that she was Sherpa. Anyway, long story short, this was a difficult day. Prepare for it if you're going on this trek, but it did get better from here on out.
There's the horses, there's Noom, and Seduwa is this way.
तपाईँ त छिटो छिटो हिँड्नुहुन्छ
होइन हिँडेर म अघि खुट्टा दुखेर अस्ति बल खेलेको थियो त्यो तपाईँभन्दा झन् ढिलो जखली 8 बजी 7 बजी हिँडेको बिस्तार लजाउँ बिस्तार.
This was our next friend on the trail, a young man named Birwal Rai. He walked with us for a little while and was just a really humble and curious guy. Like I said, people were eager to talk on the trail, and we loved it. We were happy to oblige.
यो तपाईको फार्म हो यो सामान बोक्ने ए हो अनि दिनदिनै हरेक दिन गर्नुहुन्छ
म कहिलेकाहीँ बोक्छु यो आफ्नै बोकेको
हजुर
कोरोना भाइरस भन्दा अगाडि मान्छेहरू यहाँ विदेशीहरू धेरै आउनु भयो कि
धेरै आउँछ अहिले आएको छु तपाईँको चाहिँ त्यस्तै 2 जना तर तपाईँहरू यत्रो उता बिजी हुन्छ तर तपाईँहरूलाई नेपाली भाषा हामीलाई भन्दा राम्रो बोल्नु आउनुहुन्छ
होइन नि नाम चाहिँ तपाईको
मेरो बिरबल कुलुङ राई हो
खुसी लाग्यो भेटेर. So that was basically the whole journey from Noom to Seduwa, down and up. And we met some donkeys along the way, as well as some really nice people. And funny enough, when we got to Seduwa, we were not the most exciting thing going on in the village. The whole village had gathered for some road construction that was going on. And to be honest, it's pretty exciting when your village does not currently have a road to it and then you're getting connected to the outside world. So I completely understand. Frederick was way faster than us. I think he got there about an hour before we did. We were going pretty slow that day. And we stayed at this Makalu community homestay, which turned out to be, once again, owned by that same Sherpa family. So that was day 1. Pretty tiring, but ultimately very rewarding. Welcome to the end of part 1. Part 2 will be out soon. I knew from the start that I was going to have to do these in parts. I didn't know how long part 1 would be, and I think it's some indication of how long part 2 will be. So I hope you stick around for part 2, and I will see you there.